So for our fourth resolution of the evening, the motion is that exams measure memory, not learning. And for 2 minutes of opening remarks, please welcome Madam Prime Minister Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Exams measure memory, not learning. To begin with a brief definition, memory is referring to the ability to recall information for a short period of time, whereas learning is about comprehension and understanding. It's the ability to retain and use information at a later date and to actually put it into practice. The basic structure of exams do not allow for do not allow for learning. They simply allow for memory. If you consider the time constraints of an exam, if I have 3 hours to answer 10 pages of questions, it's all about how much information I can get down onto the page, how quickly I'm able to write. It doesn't measure my ability to fully understand the concepts that I'm writing about. If I'm able to cite 4 judges' names in 20 cases and add a couple of principles in there, and one of my colleagues is only able to cite 3 of them and maybe 5 cases, I look better. That's not because I understand the content better. That's because I have a better memory than my colleague does. Further, if you look at the form of it, a closed book exam is exactly what we're speaking of. How much can you retain and spit out onto the paper in the time that you're given? Even an open book exam, that's not about memory. That's about organization. How good are your notes? How much of an index do you have to be able to refer to them and get to them quickly? Looking at the type of the questions that are asked, multiple choice, short answers, problem questions. There's no real world application of the material that you're taking. It's fabricated situations and it doesn't translate well. It doesn't allow you to actually put it into practice, which, as per my definition, is the end goal of learning. For these reasons, exams measure memory. They do not measure learning.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. And for arguments against the motion, please welcome the Leader of the Opposition, Danielle.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen. Who says that an exam questions has to test your learning every single time? Why can he not test your memory as well? Because before you can have a long-term memory, you need to have it in your short-term memory too. And I'm sure that if I ask every one of you something that you remember still, learning with the incentive of learning for an exam, I'm sure that you could come up with an example, each and every one of you, including you. And you were talking about real-world applications. We cannot learn everything in our head. We cannot not have the complete knowledge every single time. And therefore, to have an open book exam forces you, yes, to have indexing skills, organizational skills, which are excellent skills to have in the real world. Because, yes, we may not remember everything, and perhaps our memory fails us, but typically we know where to find back the information. And that is a skill that is applicable in the real world. Time constraints. Well, I don't know in what world you live, but in my world, I need to be able to provide information under very exquisitely difficult time constraints. And therefore, it is a skill that has real world application. It's also a way to find out whether the material was really absorbed by the students. And also, there might be an opportunity also to ask the teacher to write better questions that shows you that not only did you memorize, but you learned about it. You can ask also, the teacher could ask scenario-based questions, which really would mimic what would happen in the real world. Not every single thing that you need to do to complete a task, but what is the first thing you should be doing? What is the best thing needs to be done under those circumstances? And this is why that I strongly believe that exams measure a form of learning, because memory is the first thing that we learn to learn. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Danielle, and please welcome back for 1 minute of closing remarks, Nicola.
Thank you. My learned friend of the opposition has brought up some very good points about the need to learn the skills and how exams can help with that. Absolutely. However, the point of a course that an individual is taking at a university, at a high school, whatnot, or a college is generally to learn specifics about the core of a subject. If I'm learning accounting, I need to know the principles that fall in behind it. I need to be able to understand them and comprehend them. Yes, I need to learn organizational skills and how to research and find that material at a later date. But in that context of the exam, that should not be the core issue. That should not be at the forefront. And that's what exams seem to be leaning towards. They can help us learn those skills, yes. But do they really help us learn the material? I say that they don't. They merely test your ability to memorize that information for that specific period of time. And now while we might be able to recall something that we learned in a course or a class ages ago, do we know the base of it, the core of it, or is it just one solo fact? For these reasons, please support the motion.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. So we've heard the arguments both for and against, and to the popular vote, those who are for the motion that exams measure memory, not learning, please raise your hands high. 8 people. And those who are against the motion, please raise your hands high. 13. The motion is defeated. Please congratulate the opposition.